I'm Brent Dance, a second-year MBA student at the Tuck School of Business at Dartmouth College. I'm also an MBA fellow at Tuck's Center for Digital Strategies. I'm pleased to welcome Phil DeGisi, Director of Merchandising at Wagcalm, Quidsy Inc., an Amazon company. Phil is joining us today as part of the Brit Impact Technology series. So welcome to Tuck, Phil. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Brent.
You bet. Today we're talking about big data. And before we get into the topic of big data, I'd love for our audience to better understand the relationship between Quidsy, Wag, Amazon, and your role in all of that as Director of Merchandising.
Sure. So I work for Quidsy. Quidsy is a subsidiary of Amazon.com. They were acquired by Amazon in April of 2011. Wag.com is one of our vertical specific e-commerce sites. It's a pet site where customers can get everything from their pet food to their pet toys delivered fast to their door. As the Director of Merchandising for Wag, I focus on everything from the pricing of the products we sell to negotiating with the vendors for the products we sell, the on-site taxonomy, the content that we show the customers, as well as the emails that we send our current customers.
Great. So there's a lot of conversation about what is big data, and everybody has their own perspective given their roles and given their company and given even the industry. So from your vantage, what is big data?
Yeah, I think big data simply is any data that is getting to the point where you can no longer manage it with your on-site database management tools. So things like your server logs, your web logs, all this data that's being created by, especially an e-commerce site, would classify as big data.
And there may be some who say that this is much ado about nothing, but we believe that there is something different, and wanted to get your thoughts on what are the conditions or the environment, business and technology that make this phase of big data different?
Yeah, I think we're entering a phase of the industry where we've never had this much information about our customers. Instead of taking an educated guess at what a customer might want to see, you're getting the data that really tells you, okay, the customer is interested in this product or this brand to a degree that we've never had before. There was an interesting study that IBM did where they said that 90% of the data that exists today has been created in the last 2 years alone. So I think clearly we're at an industry shift already, and it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
So, one thing that a lot of people like to do is think about all the different possibilities for this big data applied. What are some examples, or how would you sort of envision this big data being used in unique ways, given the tremendous amount of data and the way that we can now interpret it?
Yeah, I think for e-commerce right now, we're about to enter an age of personalization that we've never seen before. So by personalization, I mean we already have recommendation engines on here's products that we think you'll like based on a regression of the other products that you've bought previously. I would liken it to going to your hardware store in a small town, and the store owner knows you really well, and you say, I'm working on my garage, and he says, well, I know you have a one-car garage, and I know you're pretty handy with the tools, so I'm going to recommend this specific tool for the project you're working on. It's because he knows you that well, he knows this is the right tool. What big data is going to allow e-commerce companies to do is get to that point, but take it a step beyond, because we can be proactive and say, we can be predicting that you're going to need this tool rather than you reaching out to us saying, I need it.
No, that sounds really, really exciting. I think that lends well to this next question about the limitations, or maybe some of the obstacles you'd face in getting there, perhaps around privacy or concerns of those who may hear that story and react negatively. There definitely are many who would react positively to that and see the value, but what are some of the obstacles that you see?
Big data privacy is definitely going to be a concern, and retailers having an understanding with their customers about what they're comfortable sharing is going to be critical. Another element that I think is really interesting is the resources needed to act on big data. So an example would be, if you know that you can version out 5 different home pages of your site for the exact right customer, that's a great learning to get. But what's the marginal ROI on that? And understanding that is critical, because there's a creative resource now that needs to go into building out all these different versions. So I think we'll see an influx of tools that can actually leverage big data and help retailers and other companies act on it. And I think what's going to be interesting is seeing how smaller companies can leverage big data, their version of big data, which is smaller than a big company's big data, but still a lot. So how do you resource against that if you're a smaller business? And if you're a big company, the quantity of data is a lot. How do you act on that?
Do you see things getting more competitive as a result, or I guess democratized, as small companies are able to now have access to, the same amount of data as big companies?
Yeah, I think like anything, it's going to be where do companies feel like their greatest return is, and having all this data is really great, but you have to be careful not to try and boil the ocean and take on too much. So, like any resource, like any piece of data that you currently have, it's going to be understanding what's the return by working on this and trying to measure that and test out what works and what doesn't work.
Great. And I think it would be interesting for a lot of those listening to hear about, in your mind, what makes Wag.com, what will make it and has made it successful compared to the famous Pets.com of the big crash.
Sure. Wag, I think, is different for a number of reasons. One is just where the industry is versus when Pets came out. We're at a different time in e-commerce. E-commerce is a much higher percentage of retail than it was when Pets came out. The second piece would be just Quidsi's expertise in shipping big, bulky products. It's something we've had success on with diapers.com and soap.com. So we're applying a lot of those learnings to what we're doing on Wag.
No, those are great points. I'd love to hear what are your most favorite aspects of your job. And I know throughout your past you've been involved at various stages of companies, big and small. What lifestyle or what life stage of a company do you most enjoy being a part of?
Yeah, what I love about Quidsi is we're building these new sites pretty often. So I've had the opportunity to launch 2 sites, wag.com and afterschool.com. And it's great. It's great acting on what customers are looking for and being able to shape a business based on servicing the customer. Everything we're doing at Quidsi is about inspiring passion in our customers, so it's exciting to build businesses that really can drive that passion.
Are there any questions you think that should be asked more often in the public discourse, in the tech blogs and the media, that you think aren't being addressed right now?
I think there's already a lot of questions around privacy, and I think that's really great discourse for us to have as a country, as a world, as all this data is available. So I think that conversation's being had. I do think the idea of how you resource against big data and being able to leverage big data is really a huge question for a lot of companies. You have all the server logs of your company, all your web logs, all this customer data, but the data is only as good as the person on the other end who's trying to work with it. So I think you can see a greater focus on analytical skills and quantitative ability as roles that a lot of e-commerce retailers really need to focus on in their hiring.
Great, that makes sense. Phil, DeGisi, this has been great. On behalf of the Center for Digital Strategies at Tuck, I'd like to thank you again for speaking with us today. I hope you come back again. We appreciate your thoughts and insights. This has been Brent Dance at the Tuck School of Business at Dartmouth College.